Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Three Black Heathen Show. I know tonight you guys were expecting a debate between myself and Emperor Atheist, but unfortunately, because of that southern traffic, Imp got caught up in. So we're actually waiting for him to arrive, but I'm not even sure if he's going to be able to make it tonight. So we're probably going to have to postpone the debate between me and him until next week's show. But we'll see, maybe if he can make it home in time so he can get to his computer. So tonight it's just going to be me and Drag. We've invited some other people on just to have a just general conversation about the regular stuff that we usually talk about. So what's going on today, Drag? What's been happening, man?
Yeah, I had to take a little break. And too much YouTube trying to,
Yeah, what happened with that?
Yeah, man, dealing with fucking retards. I mean, special people on the internet, taking away from time that I need for my schoolwork and stuff like that, man. Because look, man, going in the lab and cutting cells and making Kool-Aid, that's all easy. But sitting in the classroom by a dude who barely speaks, coherent English and trying to learn organic chemistry ain't the easiest thing in the world. So, yeah, I'm trying to finish up so I can at least skate by with a fucking C in this class, and I will be happy. So, I had to take me a little bit. I didn't upload nothing on my channels or Eric, can you turn me down a little bit? Because
No, I just did.
Okay, yeah, sorry about that, folks. But yeah, so. But yeah, I've been hanging out with Xavier, and because I helped him move. I actually helped him move in to apartment, his very first apartment. Helped my little brother move in. So now all three of my little brothers are here in Houston with me. So now I'm making that adjustment, and as well as making sure that they're squared away. So I'm doing the big brother thing. I'm doing the dad thing. Helping my son with some stuff, little, second grade arithmetic stuff that he's not understanding with, ones, tens, hundreds place, all that kind of stuff.
Did you get the new math yet? The new math.
Oh, the Common Core.
Yeah.
Man, I think that's what he's doing because he what is this? Actually, I got some of it here. So when we learn math, it was here's the one spot. Well, I guess it's opposite on the screen. So ones, tens, hundreds, thousands.
Yeah.
So. I'm gonna tell him about the sheets. Don't worry, Xavier. Xavier came by and met my family, so I'll tell you all that story. So for the kids in second grade, they have the ones, tens, hundreds, thousands, but then they have it in what's called pictorial form. I don't know what a pictorial form of a number is. My son can tell you, 8,597. He can look at it and tell you that, but when it's in pictorial form, it's square, eight squares with 8 T's inside of each, and then 5 squares with no T's, and then 9, vertical lines, and then 3 dots or some shit. Like, I have no idea, man. I don't know. I'm like, whatever, just do what the fucking thing says. So that's an adjustment for me. So I'm trying to get that squared away. But man, so my parents, older folks, the senior citizens, both of them are senior citizens now.
Oh, wow.
So I let them have my son's room. I said, okay, come on, boy, come sleep in our bed. And I had to get some new sheets, and so I didn't even look. I just took sheets that were dirty, that were our sheets, and I washed them for my parents. Right, nothing crazy. So the sheets that I had washed, and I didn't realize this, were watermelon sheets. So Xavier got to see me hand my mother a fitted sheet and a bed sheet of watermelon. So that was magical. And I gave my wife shit for even buying these because she said they were cute, and I said, we're black and you got watermelon. We got us laying on watermelon sheets. I feel my credit score going down from this. So yeah, that was a thing. That was a thing. So yeah, man.
God. Well, hey, listen, I've experienced the frustration of learning the way my daughter does math versus the way I've done it for years, and I still don't get it. It's funny because I get it and then I forget it because I'm just so used to, you can't teach an old dog new tricks, and I am an old fucking dog, so it ain't happening for me. But hey, like it was funny because sometimes she'll come home and she'll be like, "Daddy, can you help me with my homework?" And I can't figure this shit out. I'd be like, "You was in school all day with the teacher. You supposed to be teaching me this shit." You know what I'm saying? That's why I send you there for. Well,
So man, you gotta take this to the math department. And be like, hey man, can you look at this for me? Because I don't know what is x squared x? What is that supposed to be now? Oh, okay.
well, the thing is, I was teaching her like I learned this shit, and next thing I know, the teacher writing notes home. You fucking it up, we teach it this way. I'm like,
oh, they
shit.
write notes home, man. Look, they got high speed on me. I got Class Dojo, so she sends me a message on this app.
Oh.
That she stay in the DMs. So I got teachers in the DMs. Yeah, Class Dojo. Yeah, man.
But the teacher texts us and shit, but I give them hell, though. I give them hell. But up here in New York, I don't know. Like, what do you feel about charter schools? Because up here, like the best schools in the hood are charter schools, like no doubt about it. And the public schools are shit. But now I'm in liberal New York City. They're trying to shut down the fucking charter schools. I'm like, what the hell's going on? If it's the best schools in the hood that's teaching the kids what to do, then why would you want to close them down?
Yeah, for some, I've heard certain folks say that the charter schools, especially up in that area, are just kind of cash grabs, more or less, and they really don't provide much more than the public schools. That's what I heard. I don't really know, but around here, see around these parts, around here, what's cool in the streets is you have what's known as independent school districts, and the schools are funded by each individual district, and it corresponds to, I believe, voting districts. And so we live in one of the more well-to-do districts, and so they have iPads when they go to the reading lab, and they have all this type of technology and stuff like that that some of the folks in inner Houston don't probably have. And so there aren't too many charter schools around here. It is, people try, what people do around here is that they pretend that their address is in this ISD, and so on their kids' records they'll put that their kids lives like down the street from me. And so what they're doing now is that, and we have to do this every year, you have to provide 2 forms of bills from that address. So I had to do like cable bill and like electric bill, something, and it has to be one of them has to be a major utility. So it can't just be cable, you just saying being sent here. No, so I do like my Champion Energy, whatever it's called, and I submit that. So yeah.
Like mama, what is it? Like mama's she needs to do a cable bill, so she gives you the like she uses your name for credit. And then you can
screw up your credit.
Yeah.
That's it. I know people who did that. So man, yeah. Unfortunately.
Back in the days when there was no computers and you can use credit like crazy. I remember I had a credit card like at 5 years old. I was like, damn, my credit score goes back that long.
Yeah.
Man. That's how it is in the hood.
Jones. Hey, ain't gonna buy himself.
Fine. Amen to that. Don't gotta pay him back. Credit fraud. Didn't even know my pops was doing it to me.
Shit.
My credit was fucked up at 5.
Going 10 years old trying to get this bike. I'm sorry, man. Your credit's bad, man. How you get a negative 160 credit score? How you do that?
Yeah, I owe them points and shit. They're like, you owe us points. I'm like, what? Damn. But but about this though, about charter schools in the Northeast, I'll say this. In New York City, the problem is that the public schools, for instance, the public school that we were going to send my daughter to was ranked like in the last 10% of the state, like one of the worst schools in the state, last 10 in the bottom 10%. In that same building, there's a charter school. That charter school is in the top 10% of all schools in the state. In the same fucking building. Yeah, in the same fucking building. So that's the issue that we come to here, is that when you have, when you have such success in one, my daughter goes through one door, she's in one of the top schools in the state. She goes through another door, she's in one of the worst schools in the state, and it's in the same fucking building. So it just boggles the mind that you can have a system like this where they're both public schools. But to me, I'm a results-based guy. If it works and these children are getting educated And charter schools actually even cost less than public schools. And you're getting, like I think the charter school gets like 99% proficiency in math and something like 90% proficiency in reading and 99% proficiency in fucking science. Those numbers are outstanding because a lot of think about this. Back when we were in I'll say maybe about 20, 30 years ago, it was blamed on being black. There was like it's something about being black that's why these kids can't get educated. These kids are at a disadvantage not only because of their social circumstances, but they're also at a disadvantage because of who they are. Black people don't do homework and this type of thing. And these charter schools were able to come into black neighborhoods and show you that's not true. We can teach these kids at a high level and have them compete with their white counterparts. And it's a shame that the city sometimes is now wanting to shut down some charter schools. But the reality of charter schools in New York City is that in the same buildings, there are schools that are in the top 10% of the state, and there are schools who are and they are in the same building. And really, it all depends on, what door your child goes through, and that's what that type of education they're going to get.
Right, because education is either going to help edify them or it's going to cripple them forever. Like I still to this day remember terrible experiences. As I was actually just getting into high school, and then just the quality of teachers and materials that really this to me, it made an impression on me. It's like if my books are literally falling apart, like they were written in the 1970s, and I'm like, what is life? Half the kids in the school getting pregnant. I'm not even kidding. You can look up Douglas Byrd High School in Fayetteville, North Carolina. It is bad. Half the kids in the school getting pregnant, other half going to the alternative school. I can't, for the life of me, can't remember the name of the alternative school. Something Walker Spivey, I think it was called. And it's just it was not great. But then Hurricane Katrina happened after I moved down to, Louisiana, which I went to Slidell High School in Louisiana. Not too bad. Went to a brand new school in Smithfield, North Carolina, called West Johnson High School. And the quality of education improved dramatically. And it's like, man, I wish I'd gone here my entire 4 years. I would be in a much better position. And so, as a kid, you really don't understand how having a foundation, having educated parents will definitely shape who you will become. Because I've run into way too many ignorant fucking backwoods hicks who really don't value education and are very, very ignorant. I mean, incredibly ignorant, to the point that, and I shit you not, man, when I was in Maryland, one of my coworkers was dating this guy who refused to allow his kid to learn Spanish.
Oh, wow.
For no other reason other than, well, she shouldn't be speaking 2 languages. Now, you think about how people who know multiple languages are also correlated to having higher levels of intelligence, higher levels of success. Like you can, on almost any scale that you've seen, that's always one of the indicators, having the knowledge or being able to speak fluently another language. And he is literally crippling her ability, her upward mobility in society. And I'm just like, for one thing, how are you fucking this dude? And then two, it's like I have to get out of here. I cannot raise a family around people who think like that, because that is just the antithesis to anything that I want to do and be in life. I don't care what this person has to say to me at any point in time. They are too dumb to know how dumb they are, and that is dangerous.
No, you're right. You're right, and it's sad because when I was studying to go to law school, this is going to shock some people, but the head of there's an exam to get into law school called the LSAT, and everyone has to take it, and I always thought this is so fascinating. And the head of LSAC, the organization that gives out this test, happened to be a black man, and he was there for maybe I forget how many years, maybe 10 years or something like that. So he was the head of this company that gave out the test that all law schools use to evaluate whether students would get in or not. So he said that one thing that he noticed is that there was a deviation between whites and blacks within the test. It was something like one or two standard deviations between how black applicants performed on the test and how white applicants performed on the test. Now, you can see that in their metrics. They'll show that the average score for an African American is a 142, and the average score for a white American would be 152. So it's a 10 point gap between the two. Then the highest, for those of you who don't know the LSAT, the highest score is a 180, the lowest score is a 120. So 142 and 152 respectively for black and white students. But that difference in score, that standard deviation supposedly, was persistent across all tests. We're talking about LSAT, talking about SATs, for instance. Any standardized test that you gave to students, you can see this gap persists over all disciplines. So there was a study that was done to try to kind of figure out why this gap is there, and no one can figure it out. And it got to the point where even when they made everything else equal, you're talking about socioeconomic status, the parents live in a good home, two-parent home, all these things that you try to take away that you would think had some bearing on the student's performance on the test, it was found that had no bearing. No matter if you were, let's say, if you came from a good home, a rich home, that gap persisted throughout socioeconomic status. So it comes to are the race realists right? Is there a different type? Is there something wrong with the makeup? Or is the test just not really, or is the test kind of geared, because some of the criticism is that the tests are geared to one type of race. The wording of the questions, that type of thing. If you like, for instance, in our education system, if you're teaching the white kids one way and you're teaching the black kids another way, and then you give them a test based on the way you're teaching the white kids, then obviously they're going to perform better than the black kids because you're teaching them in two separate ways. So, what would you hypothesize that would be the cause of this continuous gap between the performance of white and black students for standardized tests?
Niggas just dumb. Like, no, but no, but yeah. So for me, and so my wife and I have actually talked about, my headphones up. Me and my wife have actually talked about this, and that it is when we are taking tests, we both end up having a hell of a lot of test anxiety.
But why? Why do you guys have test anxiety?
And that's the thing. We can never really figure out why, because even if it's something that we know, we still have that. But that's to say, of course, don't white applicants have that? Of course. One of the things that I've thought about is, and Dr. Wang, my Orgo professor, had brought this up. He said that when he was noticing a particular question, it was one question and he worded it differently, and you can get two different answers. It's either, answers 1 and 2 for this the way that I phrase it, or 3 and 4 for that, because they're polar opposites. He said that people knew the answers, but they would get them mixed up because they weren't reading it correctly. I'm thinking that maybe it has something to do with simply how things are phrased, because if Dr. Wang has seen this across the board over many different classes, many different semesters, same test, then the wording is what's getting people tripped up. So it may not have anything to do with knowledge, because if it's just one standard deviation away, that is, fairly significant as far as overall performances when you break down the demographics. But when I think about the way that I interpret a test, I'm going through my code switching mind or perspective to understand what's being said, and then trying to translate that back. Whereas I don't think many white students have to have that extra filter when they're trying to comprehend what they're reading. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It's just, I don't know. It always has bothered me, because I always feel that that we as African Americans, or I even hate the word African to use the term African American, but we as black people, we have we have a disadvantage all the way around. We have a disadvantage when it comes to just the way we're even perceived by people. You know, it's harder to get a job if you're black. It's harder to you get longer sentences if you do get into trouble. Like this, the deck is so stacked against you. It's hard to even to consider how people actually do it. Like I was even looking at a study that they were just showing how the average black holds has about what $17,000 in wealth, but the average white household has something like $170,000 worth of wealth, and we're talking about all their assets from job to housing and the things of that nature, and that's crazy. You know what I'm saying? That means that shows a real disparity based on racial lines. And how do you recover from something like that? How do us as black people recover from something like that? From our kids not being well educated because you're in a good neighborhood, but most of our people aren't in good neighborhoods, so their kids aren't being educated well. They're being educated like shit. Then it's going to be hard for you to get a job. Then you're over policed, and then when it all comes down to it, your family wealth is probably $17,000 a year, where the white person's family is $170,000 a year, and that's the person you're competing against. Somebody who you have 10% of their wealth, and you're competing with them, and people are trying to say, well, all of it's equal. You guys should just get over it. How the hell can you get over generational slavery?
Well, and I think that's a really, really nuanced conversation that many people who espouse those kind of views, especially, and I hate to bring up Tommy Hall, who is, just pull yourself up by your bootstraps. It's like, well, Tommy, why am I doing better in life than you? And that because I don't necessarily like to be a dick like that, because that is getting incredibly personal, which I'm not a stranger to, but I think it does stand to say, if you honestly believe that kind of shit, people like Tommy, then you should be in a better position. Next semester, you should be a scientist and not me, from where I've had to come up. So there are certain hurdles that exist for me that don't exist for other people, and vice versa. There are certain hurdles that I'm sure that exist for women that don't exist for me as a man. And I won't ever deny that is a factor. But when it comes to personal performance, and that's where I have a decision to consciously say, do I want to view this as a man, as a black man, as a student, as a veteran, and I have to try and sort out what is the most objective way to go about doing this. I know that the effort that I put in to a task, I get out generally, and that if I'm taking a test, that the effort that I put in to study for it will yield me a certain result. But consistently, I can tell you that I've probably not scored above a 90% on many of my tests. My tests generally fall within the 86 to 88 range, and so I am not in those upper tier, collegiate scholars that exist at the head of every, Nobel Prize, whatever. So so I have to ask, well, if I know that for myself, that is simply how I take tests, and that when I review how I take tests, it is a failing of myself to not thoroughly read questions enough and not to really go over each and every question again. Is that something that's reinforced by white parents, or is that something that is there some type of cultural thing where test taking is a part of Sunday brunch or something? I really am at a loss, because I only have my experiences, and the people that I typically have in my life, especially my white boyfriends, they typically score, or we're scoring around my score, or if not less, than I was. So I was actually considered a smart guy. So it's hard for me to quantify that, but I don't want at the same time blame my upbringing on why I'm not a scholar of sorts.
Yeah. No, I definitely understand that. But I don't know. I do think you're right. I think it's definitely a more nuanced conversation than I'm making it out to be. But I've always just been curious of thoughts, because I always feel, and now I watch too much of this liberal shit. So next thing I know, I'm getting myself angry watching these documentaries on how people were treated in the past, and it sometimes gets you hyped up. But it does make me think, before I was like one of those people who used to laugh when people say reparations, but I think that's true. I think now when you look at the whole totality of where we're at, I think reparations is something that, yes, it is warranted. I think it's only fair. And it's funny because I was looking at some candidates for president in the past who also thought the same thing, and they were Republicans, and they were like, yeah, we have to acknowledge that these people are at a horrible disadvantage, and maybe it should be, maybe it's the right thing to do. But
Yeah.
I don't know. Do you think Do you think we can eventually get reparations?
It'd be hard. I mean, it's not impossible, but of course, the issue that I would have is like, well, how do we turn that into being something that can invigorate communities? So let's say if we're giving reparations to folks, and let me pick on Grand Ultimate Atheist, folks up in his neck of the woods, up in Michigan,
Mm.
uh, and if if there's reparations in that area, right? I think Grand Ultimate Atheist and a few people that he knows would then say, you know what, I'm going to start doing by the block. I'm going to get together with some other brothers, some other sisters, and say, you know what, let's buy the block, let's stop the gentrification, and that is awesome. Let's get some affordable housing, let's get some something here so people can get something going, right? We know there's a lot of money coming in the community. Let's invigorate folks to be entrepreneurs, whatever. But then there's other folks who have no idea on how to conduct any, responsible, fiscal spending or fiscal management that would just end up blowing it. And while I'm not one to police how people do whatever the fuck what they want to with their money, if we're talking about something that we're all going to get that's supposed to help bridge that gap, that where a lot of us don't have generational wealth because the last fucking 200 years of American history, that it needs to be pushed in a certain area. It needs to be utilized in a particular type of way. And so then here we go again. We're getting into Du Bois' talented tenth.
Yeah, no, you're
and
right.
I brought that up. But how? So Nate, would you and we might have to give a little bit for the folks who don't understand that reference. It's so. W.B. Du Bois more or less wanted 10% of the African American population to be exemplars for what everyone else were to emulate, and so I think it's a nice idea, but the problem is that you have a lot of people who will get beside themselves by the idea of I have to emulate this person. This person does not resemble me in any way, shape, or form. I'm Gullah Geechee, he's Creole, whatever. We're not the same person. Why do you expect me to live by that person's rules, or whatever? But trying to get everyone on that page, I think would be the biggest hurdle, because I wouldn't mind ceding to a person who's far better than me, who knows what the fuck they're doing. But I think a lot of us, a good portion of us, would not want to do that.
Well, I don't know. It's funny because I'm living through gentrification now, and it's a fucking great thing. I don't know. I feel bad to fucking say it, but yo, I'm just going to keep it 100. I lived in Harlem for a long time. I was in Harlem when it was like the Wild West out here. Just to show you how different the neighborhood has become and how more gentrified it's become. At one point, I actually did an article in law school about this, where it was there was a neighborhood I picked out in Harlem that was at one point 90% African American, and it was, I think, and it wasn't even like 10% white. It was like 3% white. It had some Hispanics, but 90% African American. And the houses there, the housing there, there was, the property values were low. So people in the neighborhood started buying up the property, but they bought them up as in cooperatives. So you had a lot of poor people from Harlem buying these buildings that the city was selling for $1 because nobody wanted to buy there. So there was just, and the way it used to work back in the late '80s, early '90s, is that if you find a building and you were able to bring it up the code, the city would sell you the building, the property, for $1, but you had to bring it up to code. And that was the way of them trying to kind of rehabilitate the neighborhood by giving people away free property. So people did that. And now, like for instance, in Harlem, you have a lot of people who took part in that now have $1 million homes. you know, and that's the way kind of it worked even in white communities, because what you would do is that the government would give you these loans to buy houses. And you know, when the government backed your family's loan for their house, then your family bought a house at like $17,000. Then over 20 years, the housing prices generally went up, and now you have a $200,000 home that you bought for $15,000, and that's how you got that wealth. But the government program, black people weren't allowed to partake in that government program, and you might have heard the term redlining.
Redlining, yeah.
Yes,
Redlining.
and they would redline and say, well, we're not going to guarantee homes in these particular areas. So the black people in those areas couldn't buy those homes. So they were just renters in their own communities. And when black people moved out, the red lines changed, and then people were able to buy. So that's kind of what kind of locked them out of that wealth. And that didn't happen in Harlem. People actually were able to buy in because the city was the one doing this, and the city was colorblind. But something else did happen, is that people just didn't know the value of what they had. Like you were saying, they weren't educated. They weren't financially educated. So people were starting to sell their buildings and apartments for pretty cheap prices, $20,000, $30,000, thinking that they were getting a big deal because they only bought it for $1. To the point where now I have and this is a true story. I have a friend who bought a house in, I think, 1987. And they got the house from the city for $1. No doubt about it. They hired a whole bunch of people. I think he put like 15, 20 grand into it. Got the building up to code. So this was a house, $1, 1987 or 88. He sold it for something like 30 grand. Made a great profit. Said, yeah, I made a great profit. That house that he sold today was on the market for $3.3 million.
Wow.
Now, he didn't sit on it, obviously, but it was on the market for $3.3 million. Now, that's a huge, but that type of wealth you get from property, it's just, even though it takes time, but he would have been well off if he would have just kept that property a little bit longer.
Right.
But when it comes to gentrification now, Harlem, and I think these poor neighborhoods, like even in the South Bronx, are victims of their own success, because it starts off slow. The fact that the train system is very good in Harlem, where you can catch any train to anywhere in the city in maybe between a half an hour to an hour ride, where instead of being 2 hours. So it's a very unique place. You're still on Manhattan. So it's funny because now the problem with gentrification happened that the schools got better, because we started having these hold on. Okay, sorry, we're back. We started having these charter schools. So the schools went from the worst in the city to some of the best in the city. The crime rate started going down because you had all these, you had all these police now in the area. The crack epidemic stopped, so crime went down. So you had low crime, low cost property, and you had good schools. So of course the prices in the neighborhood shot up because more people wanted to live there, because hey, this is not now, it turned from a horrible neighborhood to a decent neighborhood where now you can spend $500-600 a month on rent, and it wasn't you didn't have to put your life at risk. Now, if you want to rent an apartment in Harlem, you're paying about $3,000 a month for maybe a 1 to 2 bedroom apartment. People cannot afford that who live in Harlem now, and this is where the gentrification comes in. It's just gotten to the point where, can you just afford to live in the neighborhood? And most people can't, because and I'm just telling you, most people have just sold their interest in these properties and now are falling victims to gentrification. But it's kind of their own doing, you know what I mean? It's kind of like we did it to ourselves, because we didn't have to sell, but we sold, and now we're victims to it. So.
Yeah, but so what would you say is the lesson then? Don't trust white folks coming trying to buy you stuff, or so what? Like,
no,
I say that
don't look at the short term game. There's a long term game. Don't just take the short term money. They took
Sure.
you take the short term money, and now he took $30,000 for a $3.3 million home.
Yeah, most of the folks that I know, though, they have to take that because since they don't have the generational wealth to rely on, they don't have this foundation that I know. My buddy Matt, he blew through a trust fund in college, and now even through that, he worked his ass off and finished college, but then he had his aunt's business in Virginia to fall back on. Like there's these safety nets that really don't exist. And so when you have something like that, you're trying to play catch up. You're like, man, I'm going to take this opportunity because knowing my place in society, these opportunities really don't come along as often as other folks. So it's crazy because you can't even imagine someone in such a situation saying that, well, I'm just going to play the long game here, when I don't think there even is one at this point.
I don't know.
I mean, no, but I do agree that playing a long game will definitely, garner him a better outcome. But I think it's just a mentality of, well, I am going to get whatever is good that's in front of me because I know I can be fucked at any given time. And I think that is something that, and it cripples me too, because even though I am fully aware I can negotiate employment contracts, I know that I can do this. I know that that is a skill, and people do it all the time. I can't help but to hear a good deal. Yes, you are hired, and accept whatever's in front of me, because I understand all the machinations that are at work here in this society, being the demographic, being who I am and what I am. And so that does play a huge role psychologically on people that I don't think is talked about enough, at least not in public. And there needs to be, I guess, a larger conversation about that amongst other types of plays that you can make to kind of help yourself in that aspect. And hold on just a second.
It's always, I don't know, I've maybe it just might be my own personal feeling, because I don't want to say that I do believe in the fact of equality, but I think at this point in time, for if we really are talking about making it equal, putting everybody on the level playing field, then you have to really consider reparations seriously, and you have to consider education, because right now, even though we pretend that the playing field is level, it's not. It's not at all. And it's something that I think we have to deal with eventually. But I'm just hoping that it's not, it's not something Trump's going to deal with. But I think the first thing we need to deal with is prison reform, because that's like the first step.
Yes. Yeah. There's actually I had I think a Harvard study that showed that people who were randomly I guess accosted on the street were more than willing to make stricter prison reforms, and as far as harsher sentences for even minor crimes, if they saw a majority of black faces. And the same people would reject making stricter sentences if the majority of the faces that they were shown of the inmates, if they were white. And I thought that was some very interesting things. It's kind of tangential to this, but you just made me realize or remember that. I think that still it's so ingrained in people's minds that when they see this skin tone, that it breeds inferiority, it breeds this idea of just inherent criminality, that got to the point you have people like, what's this guy, Jesse Lee Peterson. He plays on that, he plays on all those tropes, and it's fodder for him and his fucking viewers, and they don't really realize how much that impacts people's lives. Like shit like that is part of the reason why I spent $8,000 to move from Maryland down to Texas, of all places, because of people like that, people in those type of mentalities. But well, yeah.
Well, hold on. Also, what I wanted to ask you about. Oh yeah. So what's this clip that you had me pull up?
So, oh man. So you must have heard about this pastor that had died recently.
Oh, hold on. Don't tell me about it. Let me play the clip. I'm gonna play the clip.
Okay.
Let me play this clip. This is gonna be good. Hold on. All right. I'm gonna switch this. Give me 1 second just to set this up, because I want to get full reaction to it right now. I was gonna switch something real quick.
Black Heathens brought to you by Shea Butter. Put it on your. Don't be ashy.
Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. Sorry about the wait. Sorry about the wait. I've got to set up the audio. All right. Here we go. Tell me. Well, first, let me do a quick check. Can you hear this?
Whilst most remote tribes in the Indian Ocean.
Yeah, heard it.
All right. Cool. So we're good. All right. Here we go. We are going to play this clip that Drag has got us. All right. So the clip is up on the screen. These people should be able to see it. And they're going to be able to hear it in a second. You should be able to hear it too, Drag.
Seeking adventure and apparently also to preach Christianity. But it's a journey that ended in tragedy for the 27-year-old American John Allen Chow. Joining me in the studio now to discuss this is our correspondent Isabel Kumar. Isabel, what do we know exactly about what happened to John Allen Chow?
Well, information is a bit sketchy, Tokes, but we know that fishermen took John Allen Chow to these very remote Sentinel Islands. He tried to make contact with these tribespeople on several occasions. Now, he held a diary. He wrote a diary, and we know from his diary entries that he went to the island on one occasion on November the 14th, and he came with bringing fish and a football, and as he came in, he says, "I hollered, I love you, and Jesus loves you." But then he saw these tribespeople raise their bow and arrows, and he said then he ran to his kayak and he paddled away for his life. Well, days later, he reattempted this visit, and he got fishermen, again, local fishermen, to bring him near these islands. He took his kayak back. The fishermen observed what was taking place, and they said they saw John Allen Chow go onto the island. He saw the tribespeople with their bows and arrows, and they started to fire a volley of arrows at him, but he carried on walking. They then saw his body fall, and then they saw the tribespeople, and this is obviously all hearsay, they saw the tribespeople put a rope around his neck and drag his body away. Now, given the remoteness of these islands, the Indian authorities are saying it's not going to be a very easy task to recover his body.
Indeed. What more do we know about these tribespeople and why perhaps they're so protective of their islands?
Well, there are some 4 native tribes on the Andaman and Nicobar Islands. These are the most cut off, and they really want to preserve their isolation from the outside world, and they're known to be very ferocious. Back in 2006, some fishermen were moored nearby. Their boat was cast adrift, and it went onto the shores of these islands, and they were also killed. So they're also very vulnerable to disease because they have no contact with the outside world, so they've got no immunity to illnesses like the measles and the flus. And we're thinking there's about...
Oh, that was it.
Yeah.
Oh, so this guy was trying to spread the word of Jesus to these people. And he was killed on the spot.
He was, yeah, they shot his ass with arrows. They got some good aim, evidently. But so he supposedly convinced these fishermen to bring him to this remote ass island off in bumfuck India somewhere, because he knows that these people are protected. Like, these are native ass people, butt ass naked folks in the goddamn woods and sticks and shit, and that they need to be left the fuck alone. But no, he says, I'm going to be the first one to bring them some Jesus, and they killed his ass.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
And he dragged his body off and shit. Like, oh,
yeah, probably eating him right now, actually.
My god.
I don't know.
Yeah, you know, it's funny. It reminds me of they had a documentary on the Paraha, the people in the jungle of the Brazil who don't have a God belief.
Yeah.
And it was so funny because they were saying that the missionaries came down there and told them about Jesus. So, you know, about Jesus being God or whatever. So they were like, oh, okay, you know, Jesus is God. So they started believing, like, okay, so you got to speak to this Jesus. He has a personal relationship. And then they found out that he had never actually seen Jesus. And they said, the Jesus thing is bullshit. If you've never seen him, then obviously it's bullshit. when you bring Jesus to us, then we'll believe in him. So it's just funny because, you know, I I think we failed to, like, this guy lived in a bubble. His bubble was the world as we live in today, and his bubble got burst when there's a fucking arrow shot through his fucking chest.
Yeah, along with his lungs. But yeah, I mean that's, but that and I for the life of me, I meet some wonderful Christians, and I had family over who were wonderful Christians, but there's just some that you encounter, especially on this platform, that they just defy, like, not even logic. They just defy all common sense of social decency and decorum or whatever. Like it's just like, okay, so you knew that these people are protected by the entire Indian motherfucking government. They said, leave their ass alone. They on an island. Let them do their shit. Of all the people who are not protected by the same laws, who are not on a remote ass island, you decide to go to them for what? Exactly. I get it. You're compelled to preach the word. No one's going to stop you except the people with the arrows. But like I don't get it. Like, there's so many other options that he had other than to kill. One thing, he broke the law. Like, actually broke several laws doing that. But it's just like, maybe it was his idea to be a martyr. I mean, that's kind of like, that's always in the back of my head, is like, some of these people really do think that they are martyrs, and so his death will be seen by some fucking wackadoodle as a crime against whatever. And honestly, I think the people were right to do it. Like, and people can be mad at me,
but this is some idiot shit, though. The first time he was over there, they were shooting arrows at him. He barely survived the first time. He's like, yo, let's go. Let's try this shit again.
Yeah, I mean, it's like he won the Darwin Award. Like, that's the only way to explain that. Like, you are the weakest link. Goodbye. Like, that's it. That's it.
Well, unfortunately, he is no longer with us. He's probably hanging up in some tree right now, having his guts eaten out by the natives. But at least they've but now, if you're a presuppositionalist, they'll say they are not without excuse, because they've at least heard the name Jesus from this guy who they killed in a box.
Yeah, I think they heard blood, curdling screams. I don't think they heard Jesus, though.
But I was like, oh God.
Oh God. Oh God. Like, he's yelling curses at us.
Oh my God.
This one tastes funny.
Oh shit. Yo, you know what? I was reading this article too about science about the other day about the actual size of the universe. Now get this shit. They were saying that the universe, everything that we can see, and mind you, we can't see the entire visible universe. Only thing that we can see is something. They said you can see something like maybe 10 to 15% of the actual visible universe. Like 90% of the galaxies out there are invisible to us, and in the range of things that we think that we can see. They said, but even if you take the observable universe, and what happens is it's actually from MIT. Some MIT grads, they went through all the data and said, okay, what is the likely size of the universe? And let's take the most conservative number based on gravity and how we know light moves and everything we know. What is the true size of the universe? Not what we can see, but what the true size. And they estimate that the actual size of the universe, at least, this is the most conservative number, is 250 times the size of the observable universe. Now, to put that in perspective, that's like me running, if I'm in New York, if you know New York, it's 20 blocks equals a mile. So if me going from 1st Street to 20th Street versus me going from 1st Street to fucking Washington, D.C., like, it's that type of difference. So with that said, it seems like extraterrestrial life is not something that's it's something that should be out there, like 100%. Like with those type of numbers, then the 2 trillion galaxies that we see now, and multiply that times 250, then it seems like alien life is not only a possibility, it's a consequence of just being of the universe.
Well, I think that life is simply a consequence of matter arranging itself in certain certain ways, and then of course we have emergent properties to thank for that, but as far as intelligent life out there, I would be willing to grant that there are different types of microbes and there are different types of maybe, fauna, not fauna, flora out there that exist in some way, shape, or form. But to say, like little space aliens, stuff like that, I can't. I still, that to me says, well, there's more space than we thought. I thought that my garage only extended back 8 feet, but there was boxes up here, and now it's 10 feet. So rather
not
16
8 feet to 10 feet. If you're talking about
Right,
8 feet to fucking the next town.
Excuse me, the 500 feet. That'd be more apt. But it's like that means there's more space, but that doesn't mean that there's necessarily something in that space.
That's true. That's true.
I could postulate that there is, but I just now know that that space exists. But with that, then you could say yes, that could lead to the possibility of other types of life developing in various different ways, and who knows, there may be some different configuration of life that we can even imagine, that is possible. It's perfectly feasible where we live. But I think there was a Star Trek episode about the silicone-based life.
Yeah.
I think people reference that. I mean, what
are the problems with silicone-based life?
Well, carbon bonds break fairly easy. With enough heat, was not even that much heat, they break.
Mm-hmm.
Silicon, based on how they arrange themselves and the amount of energy that it takes to break those bonds, is not as, because you realize that we're constantly breaking carbon bonds all the time.
Yeah.
Just to live, we're constantly doing that. That's something that's silicone based really can't do that as effectively, and that's one of the hindrances. I mean, it's possible, that it could happen, sure, but it's not likely given to how we get our energy. But who knows? I would be interested to see, maybe there is something that exists out there that there's a silicone based life, or maybe it doesn't need to break those bonds as often, for a myriad of reasons. Who knows? And I like kind of wondering about that. But I think personally that there are other places that exist that have probably microbes and maybe some simple there we go, that's the word, colonial. There's certain colonial species that exist because these microbes will kind of aggregate like sea sponges. You ever seen a sea sponge? Yeah, if you compress sea sponges and then allow them to aggregate, they'll reform. Yeah, not in the same exact shape, but they can reform again, and something like that. But that is how simple life happens. That is how it propagates, just making repeating patterns of whatever's already there, and then just altering that.
I always think about how scientists always come to these conclusions, and it's interesting because how the Big Bang Theory, the farther back you go, the hotter the universe gets, until you get to that point of when everything was so close together, which is so hot, that type of thing. But they were saying that there was actually a point between the Big Bang and where we're at now, where there was maybe I forget how many years they were saying, but it was a lot, that the average temperature in the universe was actually the habitable zone. All space, the radiation in space, there was so much of it that everywhere was a habitable zone. Matter of fact, we would be now near our star would actually be too hot. We'd have to be further out because space itself had an intrinsic heat to it, and that would make liquid water actually possible throughout the universe, not just near stars. So they were positing that life could be as old as, you're talking about life could have been sprouting up at that point, because you have all these rogue planets and things of that nature where you don't have to have these narrow bands around stars to have liquid water, because the universe at that point was warm enough where you can have liquid water throughout the universe. The planet could be anywhere. So it's interesting if we're talking about the conditions that precipitate life.
Oh yeah,
in the universe. It just seems like it's just there.
I'm fully on board. The idea that life was teeming, billions of years ago, in many different areas. But as the universe expanded, of course, they they progress to a point that they're out of habitable zones, and so as they migrate out of habitable zones, then life eventually died off. And I think there's several planets and just in our little solar system that they found like ancient rivers and streams where water once flowed, but as they migrated out of the habitable zone, they dried up. Some of them froze. I think on what's the moon? I think it's Venus or Jupiter's moon of Titan. They have hydrocarbon. There's liquid, hydrocarbon liquids underneath the surface, I want to say. And I want to say on one planet it rains diamonds or some crazy shit like that. Shit. Yeah, I can't, and it's gonna bother me, and I'm gonna actually look it up. About was it raining diamonds or something like that? It had to do with hold on, extraterrestrial diamonds. On Uranus and Neptune. Okay, high pressure experiments suggest large amounts of diamonds are formed from methane on the ice giant planets Uranus and Neptune.
Because of the pressure. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So I mean, that's just crazy to imagine something like that. But diamonds are nothing but carbon.
Like they're carbon under pressure.
Yeah. So if you compress it, it's going to turn into what it's going to turn into. We're just used to seeing it in, down on the ground where the pressure is already great. But if the pressure is like that everywhere, then you're going to have lots of diamonds. So wow. That's what. But that's interesting because that says, well, if what we're trying to do, and that's kind of what the research that I'm getting into to help people, be a bit more viable in space. Because right now, when you're in space, bombarded with so much radiation that it kind of doesn't fare well if you're trying to stay there for an extended period of time and not get cancer. That's kind of an issue. So the things that we kind of skip over in all these science fiction movies is just think about every science fiction movie where there's space travel. Like they're being hit, like they don't have an ionosphere to block radiation. We just kind of presume through movie magic that whatever spaceship that they're in is going to block it. Well, not necessarily.
Don't forget, Star Trek does have the Heisenberg compensator. That's
yeah. I heard someone had a conversation about that recently. I skipped that. I'm not a big Star Trek fan. I'm a Star Wars fan, so I skipped all over that conversation. But I mean, I heard that thing. They just magic and it works. I have no idea.
Oh, matter of fact, if you're a Star Wars fan, what do you think about the last two movies? What do you think about The Last Jedi? Like, all right, out of the new group of movies, what do you think about the direction? Because they're looking to fire the person that fucking is producing the new Star Trek stuff to go in a new direction.
The new Star Trek stuff?
I mean, the new Star Wars.
Star Wars. Yeah. Who? Okay, because I think it was it J.J. Abrams did The Force Awakens. If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And then it was some other guy who did The Last Jedi.
No, we can start with The Force Awakens.
We can start. Okay, I enjoyed The Force Awakens. It picked up in a place that I like for the most part. It still felt really new to me, but the way that they did kind of, migrate all the old characters kind of back in to the story, I liked. Rian Johnson was the other guy. Okay. And I love J.J. Abrams as a director. I thoroughly enjoy most of the movies that I see with him as a director, so I can't complain. I did take issue with kind of how comedic they wanted to be with the movie because it had a fairly serious tone. At least the original trilogy had a very serious tone that I think kind of hit. And this is just me personally, folks, and folks beat me up on this. I enjoy comedy. I am a comedian on my own fucking channel, but how they were trying so hard to be funny that it was painful to listen to. When you listen to Han Solo, like he offers quips. He has that kind of that gunslinger, sarcastic, almost spaghetti western type of motif going on with him. Yeah. I got that. That's his niche, and he's going to stay there. But with Finn, my brother, who's like one of the main protagonists, it just seemed like he was trying too hard. And I got to be critical of him because he is a great actor. Like he is, because I've seen him on Black Mirror, I think it is.
Oh yeah, no, he's good. He's good.
Black Mirror. I want to say it's the same dude.
No, no,
I
no.
want to say no. I think it's the.
Well, he did the movie about this. Remember the Chicago thing when not Chicago, was it Detroit?
Detroit.
Yeah, with the
Yeah.
cops. Yeah. He was really
Yeah,
good at
okay.
that.
I'm getting my black folks mixed up so bad, but no, yeah,
We all
no,
look alike. Don't worry about it.
that's true. That's true. But no, he is a good actor. Like he is legitimately a great actor. I just think that they were trying to push him being funny so hard, and I have to blame the script writers for that. But you know, he's kind of like the plucky character. I got it. When it came to for Ray's character was introduced, and it's like, all right, they're going to throw a curveball with her mysterious family origins. I got it. And then it kind of fell short once Ryan Johnson came in and just said, well, they were just drunks and dropped you off. Like that just, it felt like a kick in the balls. Like I didn't expect her parents to be ancient fucking force wielders, but like there was that, from what I understand, from what I was told, at least, I don't know if this is true, that Ryan Johnson deviated from the script that J.J. Abrams had written. Yeah. And so J.J. Abrams had written something, you know, at least close to, okay, yes, her parents do kind of hearken from this ancient force something or other. They come from force sensitive people, which would make fucking sense. So that was annoying to me because she is a character that has some depth. You know, I can somewhat connect to her. I did have a hard time kind of connecting to some of the characters, but not as hard as my wife had at the time. She, you know, the other movie that we're kind of leaving out, the Rogue One movie.
Well, hold on. I didn't want to even touch Rogue One yet because I'll say Rogue One was a fantastic fucking film. In the Star Wars universe, I found I liked Rogue One.
No. Yeah, so my wife did not like Rogue One. She said she didn't like it. We own it. Like we own it, it's in the back right now, next to Deadpool 2.
Deadpool 2 was good, yeah.
Yeah, it was fucking great.
I love Deadpool 2, yeah.
She said that she could not connect to any character.
Oh, wow.
Not one character. And I was like, they had so many. They had old boy with the fucking stick. They had his buddy who was like an old school fucking commando.
Yeah.
I can't remember none of their names, but like I got them. She said she couldn't connect to the main character at all. And I was like, they're throwaway characters anyway. But I guess I get it. Like I didn't really feel too much, even with Forrest Whitaker's character. What was his name? Oh man, I can't remember any of these folks' name, but the character for her guardian.
I called him Ghost Dog because I was like, he's playing Ghost Dog in space and shit.
Right, basically. Shit, you know, he's, you know, I liked his character, and I think he really played that role. I was kind of upset, and some Star Wars fans might get this. There were no Bothans in Rogue One. I didn't see one Bothan. The little dog people.
Oh.
Little dog-faced people. They are traditionally spies. In any Star Wars canon, Bothans are spies, and that whole movie was about espionage. Not one Bothan.
Well, you know what? I do want to. Well, first, let me go back to The Force Awakens. When I sat in the movie and watched that, when I sat in the movie theater and watched that movie, I was a fan. I watched it. I watched everything go down. I watched the new characters. I was very happy to see, you know, because Star Wars was back. It was 10 years, you know. It was time to come back. But then I sat down and thought about what the fuck did I just see? And what I saw was A New Hope redone in such a way where they didn't even change anything. They literally just said, listen, watch this movie and we're going to do the same exact shit. We said we're going to change the name of this Death Star to Star Killer Base. We're going to leave the fucking word star in this motherfucker.
You know where they got Star Killer from, right? They actually took that from a video game.
Well,
they
took it, it was still the Death Star and Star Killer. They couldn't even take the word star out the motherfucker.
It was the Death Planet. It wasn't the Death Star. It was the Death Planet.
And
so
it did the same fucking shit that the Death Star did, except it was like, oh, let's get this. It was a Death Star. So don't get me wrong. I was entertained. I watched the movie and I gave it a pass. I said, you know what? I'm going to give this a pass because you're trying to restart something. Why go with the formula that works, right?
Right.
Then Rogue One whet my appetite because I thought Rogue One they took a risk by killing all those characters. They took a risk on marketing, money, because you had these characters that people were going to invest in. They killed them all off, and it fixed that plot hole too, from how they got the Death Star plan. So it fixed that plot hole of how come this big Death Star had this, this weakness, and it solidified that. So yeah, so it fixed that canon. Great. I loved Rogue One. I think it was the best movie of the new movies now.
They definitely fixed a few, and I actually watched the video because when I heard the names, remember they were going through the files and they were trying to find the correct file for the Death Star plans. I think one of them was Operation Slingshot or something like that, or Sling or something like that. Mm-hmm. That's the technology that they used in the next move in Last Jedi to track through hyperspace. That's that project.
Now, oh my God, Last Jedi. I don't even know if I can even speak this. I can't. The Last Jedi. Now, I know there's some people out there who are going to say this is a fantastic movie, and for those people, this is I'm a fat guy who watches these movies. My opinion is just an opinion. I thought the movie was bad for multiple reasons. Number one, I thought the movie, it was almost a FU to the fans. Remember, the part that I can illustrate that point most is the lightsaber. Now, when Luke Skywalker, when in The Last Jedi, when they were looking at that lightsaber, they were saying, my God, this is Luke's lightsaber. That meant something for it to be Luke's lightsaber. Remember, they was running around, the fucking lightsaber was moving when it saw Rey. It was like, oh, it found you. The lightsaber found you. Like, that meant something. And she used that lightsaber to beat Kylo. Remember, she got like some super force, and she never held the lightsaber before, but she can beat this Jedi Master. Well, I gave up on all that because that was Luke's lightsaber. It meant something. Mm-hmm. And then when she returned it to Luke, he like threw it over his shoulder, like, fuck it, it meant nothing. And they did, and they did that with all those little nuggets that they kind of set up in the first movie. It was like in The Last Jedi, he was just like, fuck it, this really meant nothing. This Rey's background, they were just, poor people, and they were nobodies, and Luke's lightsaber was nothing, and the big bad from the first movie, the mysterious big bad, he dies in a bar fight. Like what the fuck? You know what I'm saying? It's like whoever wrote The Last Jedi was like, let's just tear down everything that was built up that the fans were kind of being fan service for, and just give them shit instead of actually fulfilling their dream. Like even to the point of the lightsaber battle at the end. Now you got Luke, and we haven't seen in the past, I think, like 4 movies, an actual kick-ass lightsaber battle between 2 Jedi masters. You know what I mean? We haven't seen that in a while.
I've been waiting on it. I thought I was going to get that. Like, it was The Last Jedi, so I was like, maybe it was the last epic-ass battle. But no, not at all. It was a force. It was he used force projection.
He used bullshit.
That was it. That's the name of the move. It's force projection. He used force projection. Like he's way powerful to do it that far, but he used force projection to have a fucking hologram dance off with with an AT-AT or whatever it was, with the new AT-AT.
And then he dies on top of the fucking rock like he's busting a nut. Like,
yeah,
like what?
That takes a lot of force power, man. That takes a lot of force, because when you use force projection, you're only supposed to be able to do it, maybe 20, 30 meters, right? You're doing it just to kind of fake out folks to get away. It's not really an offensive move. It's just kind of a diversionary tactic to fuck with people. But he used it like I think he was out on the outer rim, and then I think the planet that they were on was also in the outer rim, but is way the fuck far away. So that took all of his energy to do. I mean, all of it. So I get why he died, but I heard whispers of him possibly coming back. But I'm like, well, yeah, as a Force ghost, he'll come back as a Force ghost.
He died because he thought too hard about something. I'm like, this is the fucking guy who's supposed to be fucking dying and with a lightsaber stuck in his chest. He's died because he thought too hard about something and it fucking happened. Listen, Rogue One did one thing right. The end scene with Vader, it gave you a little taste of what a good lightsaber battle, fucking people up will do. Rogue One didn't give. I mean, not Rogue One. The Last Jedi didn't give. And another thing, the Last Jedi fucked up with, I think, is it fucked up all the canon. If you can use a fucking starship, crank that motherfucker up to light speed, which makes sense. You crank it, shoot at a light speed at something, then that's an atomic bomb. Because what happens is all those atoms and stuff are hitting other atoms at light speed. That is going to create a lot of fucking energy because it's traveling at light speed. E equals MC squared. So, like, they didn't think about this now. Like, why not turn the ship around, shoot it at light speed, and call it a day? And then why did they have to wait to the last 2 fucking ships? They should have did this when we got 4 ships. Turn that motherfucker around, light speed into the fucking big ship, and they're gonna be fucked up. Did nobody ever think about that before?
They could have used one of the smaller frigates that like was just carrying like cargo, like unnecessary cargo, because they were letting the smaller ships go, like the medical freighters and other stuff like that. They were letting them go, left and right, and they were just blowing them up. And it's like, well, you could have, just been used them to kamikaze, into the for the dreadnought, and it's like that'd have been it.
But that puts all the bases and all those ships into question. Because if you can just do that to the dreadnought, the biggest, baddest ship supposedly they got, you could do that for anything. Yeah, all the cannon before, you could have did that before. You could actually build missiles that just do shit like that.
Yeah, well, I'm willing to say that no one ever considered using the ships themselves, because when they're designed by the same company, I'm not sure that they intended them to be used in that manner. So now that's set a precedent. Now that manufacturer has to go, okay, well, now we have to make sure there's an warp speed fucking kamikaze, mechanism built into it now, or some shit like that, because they're built by the same company. Like that's what they were talking about. The same company builds them all. So I don't think that the manufacturer ever even, was it Voss something? Or
was it in Solo? No, it was actually in the Last Jedi I showed that, because I watched Solo too. Solo was actually all right. Yeah. I didn't mind Solo, except I'm tired of seeing the fucking mother of dragons all around. You know what I'm saying? Why she got to be in Star Wars? Just keep her in Lord of the Rings. Now I keep saying Lord of the Rings. Daenerys Targaryen from Game of Thrones. Emily Clark. She was in Solo.
Was she the love interest?
Yeah, she was the love interest in Solo.
Oh, okay. I've seen very little Game of Thrones, but I thought she looked familiar. Okay. She was ruthless though, but I'm wondering like what is she like? Because she got away and she's now a part of the Syndicate and all this kind of shit. So I'm wondering how she's going to play a role in things. Well, I don't think she can, because fucking Han's dead anyway. So, but. Man, what I was excited for though was the Mandalorian movie was supposed to come out. I think that got put on hold, or actually, let me look, Mandalorian movie, because me and my cousin have been fans of Mandalorian stuff.
Mandalorian? Who's Mandalorian?
Yeah, so Mandalore. So Boba Fett, the armor that he has on.
I know Boba Fett. Yeah.
Yeah, so he's wearing Mandalorian armor. So Mandalorians are they're not really a race. Well, so there is a race of people known as Mandalorians, and they live on the planet of Mandalore, and there's a title given to the big boss, the head of them, because they're bounty hunters, they're hunter. There's an actual name of their type of society, but they live kind of like Trandoshans, the dinosaur people, but they hunt, and they're big game hunters, and that includes people, that includes giant animals, and they're vying for the position. They have a tournament to decide who gets to lead all the Mandalorian clans. But these clans are developed into different races. So you do have human Mandalorians. You have a Bothan. I think actually, are they Bothan? No, they're not Bothan. You have let's see. I don't think everybody knows Iridonians. Zabrak. So remember Darth Maul?
Yes.
His race of people, Iridonians. Okay. So I'm trying to go through the name of the races, but so they're Twi'lek Mandalorians. So they made up all different races, but you have to kind of go through like a canonization, of to get into the gang. But I'm not sure if all that's still lore anymore. So that's up in the air. So it's interesting on how they're going to incorporate all of the Mandalorian lore into the new Star Wars, because they have a vast history. And so you have someone who's chosen after this tournament to be the Mandalore the Fifth, Mandalore the Mighty, Mandalore the Ultimate, Mandalore the whatever, and that person controls everyone else.
But hold on, but because I know Disney finally came out and said that the only canon are going to be the movies and some of the animated shows, some of the animated stuff, but not everything. So they made it very clear that the top canon is the movies, and then the animated series, I think, comes second to the movies. So any conflicts with the movies, and between those two, the movies hold out, and then everything else is just kind of wiped away. So that's kind of how they've decided what canon's going to be from now on with these movies.
Yeah.
So I want to see how it works out.
It's evidently Jon Favreau is supposed to be the director, I believe, and it's saying after the stories of Jango and Boba Fett, another warrior emerges in the Star Wars universe. The Mandalorian is set after the fall of the Empire and before the emergence of the First Order. We follow the travails of a lone gunfighter in the outer reaches of the galaxy from the authority of the New Republic. The Iron Man and Jungle Book filmmaker posted, and he posted an image on Twitter. The Mandalorian after. That's what he posted. So it's just some random Mandalorian that's out doing his own thing. Looks like.
Well, I'm gonna be whatever they put out and whatever the name is, I'm gonna watch it because I'm a sycophant Star Wars fan that watches it all. So we will see. Hey, I like Jar Jar Binks, so yeah. I was a Jar Jar Binks fan.
I wasn't a huge fan of the Nabooian people. The Naboo.
Hey, I think George Lucas, it was his pet project, but that shit still made a whole bunch of money, and then he sold the shit for $4 billion to Disney, so it couldn't have been that bad,
No, but as long as they took it away from George Lucas, so I'm happy because he started doing all type of crazy. The midichlorians became little magic bacteria now.
He just went crazy with it.
And so I'm just how in his mind did that work? It's like, okay, so I can create magic bacteria to do magic things using the magic, and so now when I create magic bacteria and turn them into magic sperm. The magic sperm bacteria then impregnates someone, and then that person then is gifted because now they have half of their DNA comes from the magic bacteria and the human.
Listen, he was just high as shit. Was like, yo, how the fuck I'm gonna explain this shit? Midichlorians. He's like, oh fuck it, there it is. That fucking works.
I was fine with it being.
They'll believe anything.
Magic.
Yeah.
I was perfectly fine with the living force that it is its own entity.
Not
and
everything has to have answers.
No, and just people just manipulate it in different ways, and that because they had a whole thing with the expanded universe, and how there was a race of aliens that actually enslaved ancient humans and every other race because they had found the Force and they manipulated the dark side of the Force and they made a gigantic engine, in space, and so they got so powerful that all of them lost their connection to the Force, and they had tied their entire society to the Force, and all of them got stripped of it. So that was fucking but that's in the old old lore, old canon, which is pretty fucking funny. But I can't remember the name of that race, but they have big fucking heads. That's all I remember. But yeah, they were very adept in the dark side of the Force.
We damn sure sidetrack. Yo, matter of fact, before we get out of here, what did you do for Thanksgiving? How was your Thanksgiving this year? We all here talking, and Black Friday, Thanksgiving and Black Friday. Cyber Monday's coming up too, so don't forget to spend your money.
Oh shit, I already spent my damn money. I'm broke as hell.
Oh my god, Black Friday was such great deals, man.
Man, I was like, this year I'm gonna get a better TV for my living room because I can barely even see the fucking edges of my game. But no, so I bought a airless fryer for turkey. and I did a turkey, a 12-pound.
But you know, people usually burn down their house with those turkey fries. I'm always scared
but
of
that's
that
the oil ones, because they use the oil ones and they don't know how to actually. So there's a technique to doing the turkey, and I'll explain it. So what you do is you inject the turkey, and you inject the turkey with Creole seasoning. They sell it right next to the damn turkeys usually, and you put it in the legs and the thighs and the breasts and all the big meaty parts. You do it 24 hours before you're going to cook them. All right, that's, of course, you got to clean them and shit before that. All right, you let them sit in the Frigidator. After you did that, you take them out. You're going to get the oil heated up for about 5. It take a little bit less than 5 minutes, depending on your temperature. It could take a little less than 5 minutes to get it all heated up. You want the turkey to be around 165 degrees Fahrenheit on the inside, and so I want to say it's 5 minutes per pound you want to cook it. But that's if the temperature isn't like 60 degrees outside. It took me over 2 hours to do mine because it was 55 fucking degrees outside.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's a oilless one. But for the oil one, when you put, because you have it on a hanger and you have the turkey here, and so you slowly lower the turkey into the hot oil. You have something that's wet and it's filled with water and the injection shit, and you're putting it in hot oil. So you can imagine what happens.
It's
quite rapidly. It's popping everywhere. What people do is they dunk it in there and they just let it start popping and fizzling, and they overfill the oil anyway, because there's a fill line in there. You put the turkey in there, it's going to come up. When it starts bubbling and cracking because of the water in there, it's going to come up. What happens is people overfill it like that, and then it goes over the side, and then when it spills over the side, that flame is right there at the bottom, and so it catches fire and it comes back up into the pot, and that's how they end up catching themselves on fire and catching the building on fire. But when you lower the turkey, you have to lower it just a little bit, and you'll see the oil bubble rapidly, and I mean violently, and you lift it back up and you lower it back in again, same spot, and it's going to boil a little bit, and you lift it back up. You lower it just a little bit further you did last time and lift it back up. I probably do it maybe 10 fucking times, going back up and down like that, until I finally lower it in there and let it boil like it's supposed to, and it will fry like that for about 45 minutes to an hour. You just got to make sure you're watching the temperature, and usually the oil ones have a timer, so you have to keep resetting that timer, so they make sure that there's somebody watching it.
So how'd it come out?
The one that I did with the oilless one, it came out fine. I had to cook it for over 2 hours, but it came out really, really nice. My wife made collard greens with neck bone. Let's see, she also made some yellow rice. My cousin and his wife brought over some vegan stuff, so they had vegan turkey, and we had some pita chips with some other vegan stuff. I had vegan pecan pie, which is interesting. I had vegan pumpkin, sweet potato pie, I think, and vegan peach pie. My mother brought peach cobbler. My little brother went to a place called House of Pies. He brought a peach pie. And I was like, oh, you motherfucker, I couldn't get one regular ass pecan pie in this damn house. Because everybody came to my place. So it was me, my 3 little brothers, my parents, my cousin, his wife, and their son. Yeah. And then Xavier came over a little later. So I had a bunch of people in here. A whole bunch of people.
Oh my God.
But yeah, man, it was good.
This sounds like a fucking fantastic Thanksgiving.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, there's pictures of it on Facebook. My mother tagged me and everybody else, so yeah, it's on there.
I just sitting here at the house too. But I did all my stuff was traditional. I cooked, but I usually cook every year because I'm like the soul food guy, so I can cook all the fucking. I used to live with my grandmother, so she used to teach me. She didn't teach me how to do shit. She slaved me out. She was like, motherfucker, if you want to eat, you better start learning how to fucking cook. And so that I had to learn how to cook greens and learn how to cook, and then Thanksgiving was like, all right, this is a holiday for everybody else, but today you got to work. We got a lot of food to cook.
Exactly.
So I just learned all that shit. But it's good though because most of my family, they love to come to my house for Thanksgiving because they know for Thanksgiving and Christmas because they know I cook like their mom, mom did. So
Right,
it's
right.
you
Because
know,
not
it's that
everybody
type of
does
thing.
that. Not everyone knows how to make greens. Some people don't put no fucking seasoning in their
Oh
food.
my God,
I
you
don't
don't
know why.
know. Because you know
No
why?
idea.
Because it's like it's to make greens is an art. Like a lot of times you have to start with first either chicken broth or beef broth. You have to start with something like that. I'm talking about if you're just a novice, if you don't really know how to season it, you start with the broth, and you can't go wrong because the broth already has some salt in it, and the greens are cooked. Now we're talking about put some oil in it and some regular seasoning. That's something different, but. I don't know. It's an art form. It's funny because I was teaching my daughter how to cook some stuff for Thanksgiving, and she was like, "Daddy, how much salt or how much is this we're gonna put?" And I was like, "Babe, we ain't measuring nothing out. I'm just sprinkling it on. I'm giving it the eye test. It looks good to me. That type of thing." I don't know.
Yeah, I'm actually getting. Let me show you, because my wife made a huge pot. I mean, a big old pot. Let me tell you how she. This is all greens. All this is greens.
Oh shit.
This is what's left over, because she made a huge pot. You want to know how my wife salts her greens? She takes the neck bone. So you boil the neck bone separately.
Yeah. And then
You know how salty the neck bone gets?
Does she pour all the water in there? Yeah.
Not all of it now. Not all of it, because my wife and my mother had a conversation about that. You take like a half a cup, or even like I think it was like she took a quarter cup of that, because in Mississippi they had a name for it. Something I forgot what there's a name for it in Mississippi, what they call neck bone juice. That's salty like that, and they put that, and that's how you salt the greens. And so she took like a little container like this, about that much from here down, and she put that in there, and she allowed that to salt the greens. And then she put little Louisiana hot sauce in it as well. So you have that, and then the hot sauce, and that's perfect. I might put maybe a little bit of Tony Chachere's in it, but it really doesn't. It doesn't need it at all.
Yeah,
Not at
because
all.
you know what happens is sometimes people they'll over season it or they'll under season it. So it's like you got to really find that fine level of how to make good greens. You know what I'm saying? Because that's a secret of greens. You can't. It's got that sweet spot where it's just too much salt is a bad thing and too little is. So it's really got to be careful with it.
Yeah, I mean, you might as well under season it, because you'll do better with that.
Yeah, because people can put their own salt or whatever.
Yeah, they can always add more to it.
Oh, no.
But I'm about to heat up some greens right now, and
Yeah,
I was about to eat
that
it in front of
time.
everybody too.
Trust me, it's about that time. Well, I will say this to everyone. Thank you for stopping by. Also, listen, tomorrow's Cyber Monday, so if you guys are looking to buy some electronics, it's supposedly the best day of the year to buy them. I just bought my wife a laptop, and looking at the specs, it was a SSD drive, 256 gig SSD drive, which I love because it's a flash memory drive. It makes the computer so much faster too, and it had 8 gigs of RAM, upgradable to 16. And what else did it have? It was an i5, 8th generation processor for $399, which is like unheard of. But the one thing it doesn't have 5G Wi-Fi. It just has 4G Wi-Fi. But it's like, you can definitely use that for like a couple of years before 5G Wi-Fi really gets up and going. So, but that was like my
Gotta
big
have
purchase
5G,
there.
man. Gotta have 5G Wi-Fi, man. Because
Yeah.
I got a dual band router. I do 2.5 and 5.
Yeah, me too. I got a dual band router too. It's funny because my phone is on the 5, and my computer is on the 2.5. So,
Man, you going to have the fam come down next, man. These greens are good as hell.
oh no, I literally have a whole pot of greens. It was funny because I made two. I made like a southern style and a northern style greens because some of the family likes the southern style a little bit more. Where I don't know if your wife does this, but you could put honey in it to give it like that sweet texture, but a little. It's really light, but they love it to death, and they always eat all the southern greens, and the northern greens they don't like. And the northern greens I just make just kind of like how they make them up here. There's like a place called Sylvia's, and I use their recipe. So, but they don't like Sylvia's greens.
Honey? Put honey in it?
Well, what it does is you can it's like a slight texture that you can get, either honey or sugar. My grandmother used to like to put honey in it, and not a lot, but a little bit, and it just gives it it's like a flavor and a texture that it gives it that's really unique. And trust me, it's you'll never have greens like this again. I didn't think that was it, but
dead, man.
great.
I'm dead. I've never heard nobody putting honey. I'm gonna have to ask my mom about that one.
Honey, well, either honey or sugar, but but it's not, it's not a lot. It's like
A little bit.
yeah, it's just a little bit, and it gives it really really makes a difference. Because before I was like, I'm not gonna put any honey in it, but I stopped doing it, and I tasted the difference immediately. It just adds that little bit of something to it. I'm not sure how much, but just a little bit of something to it.
Get the recipe from you, man. That's interesting. I'm willing to try it.
I'll give it to you. I'll give it to you. It's simple though. It's chicken broth. What is it? I gotta get this. It's the seasonings that I gotta get you, because that's the big part of it. Not
you got neck bone in it though.
Well, this year I usually put neck bone, but what we used to do, I don't know. See, the way we used to do greens is that we get a deep pot and we take the bacon and fry the bacon at the bottom of the pot. Right? And then get the smoked neck bones and cook that separately, but we get them smoked. Then those neck bones we cook, we take the neck bones out, put them in the water. Then we use like maybe a cup of water, but then we'll use like 2 cups of either chicken,
chicken stock,
chicken broth or chicken stock, and we'll let it cook. Plus a little bit of oil. We'll let that cook, season, and then we'll put either honey or sugar in at the end, mix, and then serve. And that shit comes out. Like, I'll say this: I have people literally come to Thanksgiving just for the greens.
Man,
but that's because that's my and I think people just
speciality.
But no, it's not mine. It's somebody else's recipe. I just. My grandmother's recipe. I just use her recipe, and I think everybody's kind of used to it. And just the same thing we do for stuffing. Like I make my own cornbread stuffing from scratch.
Scratch? Oh, yeah. I ain't doing no. Man, I may put some. With my mother, she does a seafood stuffing. She'll put like shrimp and shit in it.
Oh, those are the best. The seafood.
I got
stuffing.
I got some in the refrigerator right now. Matter of fact,
those are
some
great.
shrimp in there.
Well, yeah, I usually steam it, but the seafood one is good. But the only reason why I don't use the seafood one is because I want to keep the turkey longer. Because it's the stuffing sometimes is the first thing to go bad in the turkey. So, yeah. But now I'm about to go eat some of this crap too. I gotta wait 12 o'clock so I can buy my own computer. But listen, guys. Sorry about, just so everybody knows before we get out. Emperor Atheist, he got caught up in some traffic, so he wasn't able to make it tonight. We're actually going to do the debate next week. It's going to be about lacking belief, which is a better definition of atheism. At this point, I don't think there really is one, but we're just going to debate the topics. He likes to call himself atheist who believes that gods don't exist. I'm one that chooses to use the lack of belief as a term. So that's one thing we're going to be doing. I know everybody's been knowing that Steve's been going around with this argument for lacking belief having a burden of proof. So that's one thing we're probably going to be discussing too, just whether that argument makes sense or not. So if you guys are interested in that, we'll definitely be doing that next week. Hopefully, if God's willing. Did I just say that? If God's willing? Yeah, if God's willing.
It's a habit.
Yeah, if God's willing.
It's a habit.
And also too, we're going to also look at there's some new stuff going on in the world of science. I was going to point drag to like stuff with evolution and things of that nature that they've been finding out that I thought was real fascinating. So I'm going to ask the expert just like they were talking about. There was a paper written by from MIT again. I don't know why I'm getting all these MIT papers. They were saying that there's somebody alive over the age of 30 that, based on the current technology, should be able to live to 1,000 years old.
Oh, the negligible senescence stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've heard about that. And actually, we've talked about that's actually there was a topic in my cancer biology course last Monday. So, you know what? Yeah, forward that to me, and I'm going to bring that up to my professor, and I think we'll have a little discussion about that because I think it is interesting.
Well, hey, I'm trying to live. I'm trying to live as long as possible. If there was a pill that I could take to live forever, I would take. I'd have took that pill like last week.
Well,
I'd
I
be like,
mean,
yo,
that comes at a price, my man. The stuff that they're talking about, making you live forever is also one of the things that we look for in cancer.
that's true. Yeah. Well, the thing is that I think it's inevitable that the one thing that us as rational human beings have to overcome is death, and if we can eventually do that, then you'll start talking about taking over the galaxy and things of that nature. Because the one thing about this universe is about time. Time. We just don't have enough time to reach the stars. At the speeds that we know that's possible. But if we take away that aspect of time where you can live, for virtually ever, then the stars become a lot closer. That 30,000 years to get to a star, that's a lot closer than it was before. Because that's in a person's lifetime. Now, you're talking about generational ships. So, but we'll see. We'll see how it all works out. But we definitely need to talk about that. So, but listen, we are gonna get out of here, guys. I want to thank everybody for watching. This was actually a pretty interesting show, even though it was kind of like last minute because Emperor got kind of caught in traffic. So it was like this actually worked out for a last minute thing. Is there any last words you want to say, Drag?
Nothing other than I'm disappointed some folks didn't show up for my Thanksgiving. They talked about coming to my crib, and I have plenty of food here for them. But oh well. Other than that, thanks, folks. I will be back to making some videos. Expect them probably later this year. I need to finish up with some school stuff. If there's something that y'all want us to cover on the Three Black Heathens, or you want to appear, you got a topic, please let us know. Open the challenge, and there will be some special guests coming up after the debate. I'm going to go talk to some folks and try and get some things arranged, see how they're going with their schedule. But other than that, I'm going to get me some more greens, folks, and put this child to bed, and we're going to see y'all a little later.
Yeah, you made me go get some greens too. I'm about to go run and grab some myself. Listen, so this is from the fat man who about to throw some greens in his mouth and have no consequences about him. I am talking to you later. Thanks, Drag. Thanks to Imp. Wherever he's at, hopefully he can get out that car. That metal coffin, baby. He's in a metal coffin trying to get home. But listen, we want to thank all you guys for watching, and we'll see you next week. Three Black Heathens Show. Later.